What's up, guys? Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our Week 2 Team Builder for NCL Season 6, taking on Mike and the Tampere Haxorus. We're undefeated against Mike lifetime in 2 games, but that's not the best sample size ever. He did bring physical pyro against me last season, so kind of goes to show you the matchup that he had. The first time around, though, we had a really back and forth game, so I'm super excited about playing him again. This time the matchup doesn't look all that impressive for me. I've got a few game plans that I can work with here, but there are some big issues that I'm going to run into in this game, and I'm not entirely sure how I want to handle those. So let's run through his team. He's got Mew, Breloom, Vaporeon, Crobat, Cryogonal, Palisand, Mega Mawile, Hydreigon, Raikou, Dubwool, and Magmortar. His priority options are the Mew with Vacuum Wave, Breloom with Mach Punch, Cryogonal with Ice Shard, Mega Mawile with Sucker Punch, and Magmortar with Mach Punch. Hazard setting, he's got the Mew with Rocks, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes, Palisand with Rocks, and Mega Mawile with Rocks. So it does seem that either Palisand is going to be forced to come most weeks, or Mew is going to carry Hazards most of the time. Removal options, he's got the Mew with Defog, Crobat with Defog, Cryogonal with Rapid Spin and Defog, and the Hydreigon with Defog. And 4 times weaknesses, he's got the Breloom to Flying and Hydreigon to Fairy, both of which are covered by the Mega Mawile. So, yeah. The only thing I don't really expect to come this week is Magmortar. It looks kind of okay at, checking Buzzwole, but Crobat can do that. Mew can semi-do that. Palisand can do that well enough. So I don't really think that Magmortar is going to come just to be a Buzzwole check when I have Suicune on the team. It really struggles to break through Suicune. It's going to really struggle to break through Mega Garchomp. It just doesn't seem like it's in that great of a spot to me. Who knows? It could show up. I think that it's probably a fairly poor bring this week, especially when I have a Kecleon on my team, but that's just me. I think almost anything else could come against me. A lot of them have great reasons to come. The thing is, Vaporeon is kind of forced to come, so I think Vaporeon's definitely coming. Otherwise, Galarian Darmanitan kind of just picks up a kill. I'm not bringing it, but it would, in theory, just pick up a kill if I were bringing it against everything but Vaporeon with, like, Flare Blitz, Icicle Crash, and that's about it, actually. Flare Blitz, Icicle Crash would pretty much pick up a kill against absolutely everything else on the team. So, yeah, maybe Earthquake too, just to hit the Magmortar. So, like, those 3 moves plus U-turn would actually be fantastic. And if I feel like I'm in a spot where I need to swap those out, swap something out for Galarian Darmanitan during the build, I think I'm probably going to. Just because of how powerful I think it is against this team. It just, honestly, just picks up kills. So, nothing to scoff at on my end. So, anyways, that's why I think Vaporeon's coming. I have a few answers to Vaporeon that I'm bringing. Mew has no reason not to come to every single game in a season, honestly. Breloom is a decent way of dealing with Suicune. It's slower than Suicune naturally, which is kind of for him, but Bullet Seed means he can break a subset, and Spore is pretty valuable. It's one of the reasons I'm bringing Shaman. Mega Mawile just has 0 switch-ins on my entire roster. Like, I just don't have a single Mon that can switch into that Pokemon. So I basically have to sack something, and that's kind of where I could go with a Galarian Darmanitan thing, but that gives him more of an advantage because I have to sack something. I go into Galarian Darm, I U-turn on the Vaporeon switch, and then he's still up a kill. Raikou is kind of iffy. It's again, it's another way to deal with Suicune. It depends how difficult he finds dealing with Suicune this week. He could bring like Taunt Crobat or Taunt Mew or something, and just not feel like he's scared by Suicune at all, so he may not have to bring both Breloom and Raikou. He may choose to bring both if he wants to. I just don't know about bringing both, but again, with Tapu Koko on my team, I think Raikou makes a little bit more sense at dealing with Suicune than Breloom, for instance. Breloom's slower than a lot of my team, actually. Despite my team sort of being weird on the speed tiers, it doesn't really have the best matchup, and Safety Goggles Bronzong seems like an okay bring. Colbur Bronzong also seems like an okay bring here, but I'm not bringing Bronzong at all. Dubwool is pretty okay at tanking Mega Garchomp hits, and kind of okay at tanking Galarian Darmanitan hits, so interesting to see there. Magmortar, like I mentioned already, Hydra's got a really good offensive matchup here against my Wall Core. The issue being Tapu Koko, generally. It obviously can outspeed Mega Garchomp naturally, so that's something that it's got going for it, but I'd have to be in Mega form for him to outspeed it. And where was I? Cryo and Palossand. I mean, Cryogonal's another Suicune check. It's one of the reasons I'm not bringing Suicune is that he's got amazing Suicune answers, especially with like Roar Vaporeon. That mon is just an issue for Suicune to be able to deal with when it would want to run like Scald Ice Beam. And Palossand is a pretty good Buzzwole switch in, which is maybe a reason that it might come. I don't know. Besides that, it's a poison resist for Salazzle, I guess, which is something to note. Of course, let's just get into my team first. So I've got Rotom here. I'm running a mixed defensive Rotom. This is a Crobat answer, as well as a Raikou answer to an extent. I mean, it could obviously run Shadow Ball. It's kind of a Magmortar answer. It's definitely a Double answer. And it's a semi-Mew answer as well as a Vaporeon answer and kind of a Mawile answer. So I've got the Will-O-Wisp there for Sucker Punch Mawile. Of course, I will outspeed it, and Shadow Ball should break a sub in theory. Defog is there to get rid of any weird hazards. Rotom will be immune to spikes and toxic spikes. I thought about heavy duty boots, but I'm not running like Pain Split, so leftovers is pretty important for longevity. And then Volt Switch is just there to pivot on other things. The great thing about having Rotom as my electric type in this matchup is that his immunity in Palossand is taking super effective damage from Shadow Ball, which is just kind of the bane of Palossand's existence, honestly, is being a ghost type, but it struggled against things like Jolteon before. Now it's better against Jolteon because its only coverage is Shadow Ball. But against Rotom in particular, like Rotom just kind of has the advantage in that matchup because it's faster and can two-shot with Shadow Ball in most cases. So that's the idea behind Rotom. I'm running 4-speed. This is for Mega Mawile. So I'm actually outspeeding max speed Jolly Mega Mawile with this, which means I will always outspeed Mega Mawile, and I can get a Will-O-Wisp spot before sub instead of taking a speed tie. And then again, I'm a little bit mixed defensive here. Shaman is coming with an Assault Vest. I'm physically defensive with an Assault Vest, which is super weird, but I was rattling off the moves that I need for coverage against this team. I needed Air Slash for Breloom. I needed Dazzling Gleam for Hydreigon. I needed Earth Power for Mega Mawile and Magmortar. And so I ended up just going with this. And so I'm Assault Vest because instead of running excuse me, Seed Flare, I'm running Giga Drain. So this is a really easy switch into Palossand every single time. It's a really easy switch into Raikou every single time. It's a reasonable switch into the Hydreigon and the Breloom every single time, being physically defensive and whatnot. It's obviously my Spore immunity to the Breloom, of course. It can kind of deal with Mega Mawile, but again, I'm Assault Vest, so I would take Sucker Punch damage, your Fire Fangs, your Ice Fangs, just being really annoying and whatnot. I can hit pretty much everything super effectively, though, which is great. I'm just not hitting like Crobat and Mew. I think Crobat's going to be a pretty easy switch in for him. Same with Cryogonal. Both of those could be really easy switch-ins to the Shaman, so I have to play around with that. But I'm a Status Absorber for like Vaporeon and Palossand, and I can always recover on both of those with Giga Drain, so I think it's a good blanket switch into a lot of Pokemon here. It would be what I would consider a Moongus, but it just has better coverage in this matchup, and it can tank the Hydra. I'm outspeeding Magmortar, so I will always be able to outspeed that and Earth Power it. No investment, but I'm physically bulky, so that'll help. Kecleon is my specially bulky Pokemon, once again with Rocks, Knockoff, Toxic, and Fire Punch. Fire Punch is there to hit the Mega Mawile. Knockoff is there so that I can get some damage on the Mew. I can 1v1 the Mew with Toxic, as long as he's not Sub-Mew, but if he is Sub-Mew, then I have Knockoff for that. The idea being that because of Protean, I can Toxic the Mew freely, and the Synchronize will not Toxic me back because it'll become a Poison type. Rocks are just good in this matchup against like Cryo, Crobat, and Magmortar. I don't expect all of them to be heavy-duty boots, but Cryo with heavy-duty boots makes a lot of sense. If he's bringing like Spikes Mew or heavy-duty boots Crobat with Defog makes a lot of sense as well. Yeah, just especially defensive. I mean, that's pretty much the whole idea behind this set, is that I Toxic a bunch of stuff and knock off a bunch of stuff, and then Fire Punch is there for Breloom and Mawile. I've used a set like this before in UTL in my championship run, and it put in a lot of work that game against the Breloom Mega Mawile of Obi in playoffs, actually. I'm bringing a Stall Salazzle, and I will call it Stall because I'm intentionally doing this. I'm not intentionally being like, oh, I just win by Toxic toxicking everything to death, but I do. I do win by toxicking everything to death. I think that I have more longevity on the team. Wish Pass is going to be really annoying, but because I have Salazzle, I can do this because I can just toxic everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Heal Bell Vaporeon comes to try and check this sort of set. Toxic Sub Protect is pretty annoying for his team to deal with, but if it's Roar Vaporeon for the Suicune anyways, then I'm going to be in a bad spot. So most of the time, even if I'm behind a sub, I'll probably still switch into Shaman, or I'll just go for Flamethrower damage behind the sub, honestly, because if he roars me out, then it's irrelevant. Even if I Protect, Roar still roars you out through Protect, and I would rather just have the chip damage, but I do want to Toxic the Vaporeon rather than burn it. I'm running enough speed for Raikou, which is quite a lot, and then max special attack, a little bit of bulk on there. So Flamethrower is still going to do quite a bit, but I can deal with like sub Mega Mawile because I have sub of my own, and again I can toxic everything because of corrosion. So toxicking Crobat's going to be very, very helpful. Toxicking the Mew, it's another strat with toxicking the Mew with a poison type, just how I have it with the Kecleon. So it's great there. Mega Garchomp I'm a little bit iffy on. I am running toxic and sub on this as well, trying to play around all of the random status moves that I could see coming in this game for his team, so I think sub is pretty valuable. I don't really have to Mega Evolve all that soon against this team because Earthquake and Dragon Claw are like almost perfect coverage against everything that you see. There's no like Grass Fairy, right? Like there's no like Whimsicott that would just be a hard wall to this set, and both of his Levitators are weak to Dragon Claw. Well, in a sense, because Cryogonal is defensively paper, and Hydreigon is weak to Dragon Claw, and then Crobat is not really going to appreciate Dragon Claw. The one thing with sub on this and Salazzle is that Infiltrator Crobat is a pretty easy bring against my team, knowing that I have a Suicune that's probably going to sub, and he could just like Super Fang through the sub or something. Lots of things that I could be bringing here might have sub. So I think Infiltrator Crobat makes a lot of sense. I don't really have a reason for him to bring Inner Focus, besides maybe him being like Yachi Berry Inner Focus to not get flinched by Galarian Darmanitan. So that's all good and fine. I'm actually running a bulkier spread on Garchomp to toxic things and then get good damage off on other things. Again, problem being the Cryogonal, but I think that Vaporeon makes a lot more sense as a switch into this. Mew could also be a switch in, so I do have to worry about that. And I have to be really careful about not trying to Toxic it behind a sub, because I'm going to get Toxic anyways. I'm outspeeding Mew in base form. I didn't write this down. I'm outspeeding Mew in base form. Chomp outspeeds Mew in base form. Max HP, a little bit of attack. And then last but not least is Honchkrow. I'm bringing a Scarf Honchkrow with Moxie. Brave Bird, Sucker Punch, Night Slash, and Heat Wave. I'm running in just enough investment to 2-hit KO Max HP Mega Mawile with Heat Wave. I don't think that's the best switch in the game to Honchkrow, but the flying resists on this team are pretty weak. It's like Mawile and Raikou, so Scarf Honchkrow looks pretty amazing in terms of just actually beating this team down with Brave Bird. There's not really a lot he can do about that. I did take away a little bit from the attack to get this enough special attack to two-shot Mega Mawile, and that's a prediction game. I'm not sure how willing I am to take that, or how willing he is to take that. If I were to Heat Wave the Mega Mawile on the switch, maybe he just goes Vaporeon. I do think Mega Mawile is probably the first switch into this. I'm not sure how much experience he has playing against Honchkrow to know that it even gets Heat Wave, but intimidating me and then being able to tank the Brave Bird is valuable for him, and he's got Wish Pass obviously from the Vaporeon. But besides that, like, Night Slash is really spammable. The resists to Night Slash are like Breloom and Hydreigon, and I don't know that you'd ever want to switch in Breloom until you knew I was locked in. And Sucker Punch is good for picking things off late game. If the Mawile is really, really chipped, then I can get my Sucker Punch off first. Sucker Punch the Mew in a desperate situation, things like that. Sucker Punch the Magmortar if it's like Select Berry and it outspeeds me. Things of that nature, but mainly Brave Bird spam is really good here. I'm actually outspeeding Crobat by 1 point. It's near max speed that I have to be, but I am outspeeding the Crobat, so I'll outspeed the entire team bar any Scarfers on his side, one of which I would expect to be the Hydreigon. Kecleon is actually a very good secondary switch into the Hydreigon, or a primary, I should say. You know, Shaman is trying to do like a bunch of stuff at once here, so Kecleon kind of fills in the hole so that Shaman can do a bunch of things at once, and I still have Kecleon in the back to sort of glue the team together. So in terms of what I'm not bringing, I know I mentioned at the beginning of the team builder that Galarian Darmanitan has a good matchup here, and it does. I don't really see much wrong with Galarian Darmanitan, except for the fact that Mawile is such a problem. It threatens out my Galarian Darmanitan, and Vaporeon is such an easy switch in for him. So this is maybe a problem for a lot of teams. You know, Galarian Darm didn't really put on any pressure in week 1. Mega Garchomp did a lot of the work that Galarian Darmanitan didn't have to, and Shaman did a lot of work in week 1 as well. I pretty much only did the one U-turn, I think, with Galarian Darm the entire game. And in this game, again, it looks great besides the Vaporeon. If it got like any coverage to deal with Vaporeon, it would probably just be like the most broken. It would be banned, to be honest, if it could hit bulky waters. And I've sort of prepped around that with my team having like Koko, Shaman, and Rotom, just having really good ways of killing bulky waters so that Galarian Darmanitan could succeed. But I think in this case, the fact that his steel isn't defensive and is more offensive leads me to believe that I shouldn't be bringing Galarian Darmanitan to this matchup. And I also think it forces Hydra to be Scarfed in prep, which is already a good thing for me. Suicune, I mentioned it a lot when discussing the mons that he could bring. There's a lot of ways for him to deal with Suicune in this match, so I don't think it holds a lot of value for me. And it really doesn't beat anything in particular besides Magmortar, which I don't really think shows up anyways. Bronzong, I think I mentioned this at some point. Hydra is like right there. It's basically setup fodder for Mega Mawile in most cases. You know, I could be like heat proof, and then I could maybe tank the hits from Mega Mawile with heat proof, and maybe get earthquakes off would be something, or heavy slam isn't a bad play either. But you know, it's got intimidate, so things to worry about there with Bronzong. It's a solid Pokemon. I could run like a safety goggle set this week and feel probably more okay about the Breloom. But I think Shaman does that job just fine, as long as it isn't like a Force Palm Breloom that just full pairs me to death. He might be wary of Air Slash. I know Mike takes longer on his turns, so he may remember that Shaman gets Air Slash, something like that, and be more wary about it, but he probably knows that it gets at least Psychic and would switch Breloom out almost every single time. Actually, you know what? I should probably switch it from Air Slash to Psychic, now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't need to OHKO the Breloom, and having something to hit the Crobat is a little bit more valuable, so I will do that. Tapu Koko could come in this matchup. Dazzling Gleam is pretty spammable once again. Just like it was last game, you know, the Crobat doesn't really threaten Koko, and I always take the speed tie, and most of the time I win the speed tie. Unless it's like Cross Poison, and then if it's Cross Poison, it's giving up a valuable move. I think it wants to have Super Fang, I think it wants to have Taunt, I think it wants to have Brave Bird, it wants to have Roost, it wants to have U-Turn. That's already 5 moves. If it has Cross Poison, that's 6 that it really wants to have this matchup. So I'm not really sure how much he would value taking the speed tie that he's mostly losing most of the time, and I could very easily just run Kebia and win that 1v1 100% of the time. But I didn't want to power up the Raikou more in this game, because I think Shaman is already a really good switch into it, but if I give it Electric Terrain, then it's a little bit more problematic. Besides that, though, Koko is pretty fantastic. Honestly, like if I had just thrown something out for Koko and thrown something else out for Galarian Darmanitan, this game might just be fine, because I could U-turn on the Mawile, and then I always get in Koko to get off a huge hit against something, and it threatens out a bunch of stuff. The issue that I had in prep is that I wanted a bunch of berries on it for the Hydra plus Crobat. Like I wanted like Kebia, but then the Hydra can just run Earth Power for me, and the Palossand can always just run Earth Power for me, and the Palossand might be Rindo for Grass Knot. So there were a lot of things to consider, and I just opted to not bring the Koko. Buzzwole, same thing. I would have probably wanted to bring Scarf Buzzwole. I think actually, you know what? I wanted to bring Koko initially, and I swapped it out for Honchkrow with Jay's advice. So you can blame Jay if Koko is better. No, I'm joking, but yeah, for real, like, I did want to bring Koko, and his arguments for Honchkrow were better than bringing Koko in this match. And if I were to bring Koko, I probably would have swapped out Mega Chomp for Galarian Darmanitan. In all honesty, it just makes a little bit more sense. I don't necessarily need the ground coverage against this team, but having, like, Flamethrower on Galarian Darmanitan, or Flare Blitz, I mean, on Galarian Darmanitan is pretty solid, and a Scarf Darm just looks like an absolute menace late into the game. But, Buzzwole, sorry. Palossand's really good against it. Hydreigon can deal with it pretty effectively because its Spidef is pretty bad. Same with Mew. Mew just demolishes Buzzwole. I could have toyed around with some sets. Crobat's also a giant issue. Buzzwole definitely has a matchup here. I'm just not sure that it fits with how I want to play this game. so I'm not bringing it. But there's an alternate universe where, you know, Galarian Darm, Coco, and Buzzable all show up to this game. I think I definitely had options of about 9 Pokemon. I definitely don't think that Bronzong and Suicune had matchups, though, and that's just a concern. So, yeah, that is it for me. I don't really have anything more to add, so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you guys for a battle against Mike and the Tampere Haxorus.